of his city. So the other day, he put limits on when buses can drop illegal immigrants off. Limits on when, where, and the bus companies have to give a 36-hour notice. Well, that wasn't enough to stop the buses. So Mayor Adams is now suing 17 Texas charter bus companies, suing for $708 million to cover the cost of taking care of these illegal immigrants. Meanwhile, the mayor of New York City has spent $4.6 million for 20,000 plane tickets for illegal immigrants to fly out of New York City into other cities. But this is different, they say. The founder of Lululemon, Chip Wilson, he sold his share of the company back in 2014 for almost $1 billion. He spoke out against Lululemon's whole diversity and inclusion thing. He said they're trying to become like the Gap, everything to everybody. And I think the definition of a brand is that you're not everything to everybody. You've got to be clear that you don't want certain customers coming in. Lululemon has some new ads where there are some plus-sized women. He said the people in the ads look unhealthy, sickly, and not inspirational. You may remember in 2013, he said some women's bodies don't work for the pants. Add this to the famous McDonald's coffee was too hot lawsuit. A customer filed a lawsuit against Dunkin' Donuts, claiming that they were negligent because he was injured by an exploding toilet. He's seeking $100,000 because he has suffered severe and long-term injuries. After the explosion, he was covered in human feces. He told an employee, and the employee said, "Yeah, we know about that toilet. This has happened before." His lawyers say he has required mental health care and counseling since the incident last year. I'm Mike Slater, Bill O'Reilly. I don't mean to laugh. It's very serious. I'm Mike Slater, Bill O'Reilly with your message of the day. Next.
If you own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles and have an auto warranty about to expire or have no warranty at all, listen up. Car Shield has a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that's now available to the public. Save on out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. So please call Car Shield now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. 800-925-7584 for a free quote. This protection plan is at an all-time low in price. Drivers who activate the vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing and car rental options at no additional cost. So please call for your free quote, 800-925-7584, 800-925-7584. Hey, what do you have to lose? 800-925-7584.
Hey guys, Columbo here, reminding you that if you belong to an organization like a school or a church, or your kids are part of a group or a sports team that needs to raise money, there's no better way to do so than with a TJ's Pizza fundraiser. TJ's Pizza has been helping local organizations raise money for over 30 years to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. A local company helping local people, and there's lots of different ways TJ's can help you raise big money fast. Get started now at tjspizza.com.
Time now for the O'Reilly Update message of the day. On this Friday, covering the presidential election this year will be challenging, as emotional lines have already been drawn, and media organizations really don't give a hoot about what is true or false. Unfortunately, many Americans don't either. They want news agencies to root for the home team, that is, their team. Fox News has the most difficult road. Its programming is stridently anti-Biden, but FNC management does not like Trump. The producers and presenters know this, so they have to be careful about what they say. MSNBC believes President Biden is not liberal enough. Its parent company, NBC News, is not that extreme, but Trump remains the devil there. CNN is back to where it was before it purged its leadership. Call it DLN, Devoted Liberal Network. Here's the backup. On Tuesday of this week, Wolf Blitzer introduced his legal team to talk about Trump being booted off Colorado and Maine ballots. Here's the roster. Andrew McCabe fired from the FBI for anti-Trump corruption. Marcus Childress, counsel for the Hate Trump January 6th House Committee. Carrie Cordero, who in May 2016 wrote a piece in a law journal saying Trump was unfit to run the government. Nice balance, Wolf. Lon Chaney Jr. would be appalled. I'm Bill O'Reilly. I approve the message by writing it. You can reach me, Bill at BillO'Reilly.com, Bill at BillO'Reilly.com, name and town if you wish to opine. Now let's go to the mail. Lee says the only war on minorities that the left ascribes is what is trumped up in the media. Our society has, over the past 60 years, bent over backwards to eliminate racism. Racism definitely existed before that. Lee, racism exists now. It does. But it is not ingrained in our government or private marketplace. It's there, but if you demonstrate racism, you, the American citizen, you're going to be punished. You'll be hurt. So you're correct. The left-wing media wants the whole world to think America's a racist country. It is not. Robert White, Lehigh Acres, Florida. Great message of the day, O'Reilly. Dr. Gay doesn't get it. She feels like a victim of racism. It's my firm belief that racism is the total reason she had her job at Harvard to begin with. You don't really know that. It looks like that's the case, but I wouldn't say it as a fact. And you say Dr. Gay doesn't get it? She gets it fine. She's going to use her skin color to engender sympathy for her. It's calculated. Alan Keolo, Westerly, Rhode Island. President Trump and Nikki Haley are willing to find mutual love and respect after Republican primaries, they would make a juggernaut ticket. Love and respect, I don't think that's coming around. I agree with you that the strongest Republican ticket at this point would be Trump and Haley, but Trump does not like her. I know that. In a moment, something you might not know. Everything is expensive these days, you know that. The government is printing trillions of dollars and consumer prices higher than ever. If the government continues its printing and spending, the dollar could continue its free fall and lose its coveted role as the world reserve currency. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But there are a few things you can do right now. American Hartford Gold can show you how to protect your money, your retirement, your hard-earned savings against inflation by helping you diversify a portion of your portfolio into physical gold and silver. Start with a short phone call, and they can have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or put inside your 401k or IRA. Call 877-444-GOLD, 877-444-GOLD, or text GOLD to 65532. Again, that's 877-444-GOLD, or text GOLD to 65532.
The Right Mind Show with Todd Showalter.
Hi, it's Todd Showalter from The Right Mind Show, where we put the fun in our dysfunctional world. And there's nothing more dysfunctional than the holidays. Crowded malls, drunk relatives, and of course, the holiday fruitcake, who I refer to as my Uncle Bob. So join me and my buddy Joey B this Saturday, won't you? Hey, it's better than kissing Grandma under the mistletoe.
The Right Mind Show with Todd Showalter. Saturday evenings at 5 on News Talk STL. Brought to you this holiday by LiberalJoke.com.
Now, the O'Reilly update brings you something you might not know. The blue state exodus that began during the pandemic continued in 2023. According to data from the Census Bureau, a record number of Americans are ditching liberal precincts for more conservative counties. Here are the fastest growing and dying states in America. New York witnessed the biggest decline. More than 100,000 people fled the Empire State, followed by California with a net drop of 75,000, Illinois 32,000, Louisiana 14,000, Pennsylvania 10,000. In contrast, 500,000 Americans migrated to Texas, 400,000 of Florida, 200,000 of North Carolina, 100,000 of Georgia, 90,000 of South Carolina. When asked why, a majority cited three reasons: high taxes, property values, violent crime. First, taxation. An individual earning $100,000 in New York gives about half of their income to the government. That same person in Texas keeps about $80,000 out of $100,000. Next, home values. The median price for a single-family house in California, $850,000. That figure rises to $1.5 million in San Francisco. A similar property in Georgia, $300,000. Quite the difference. Finally, crime, violent felonies in Illinois and Louisiana up 25% compared to 3 years ago. Carjackings and retail theft up triple digits in the blue states. New Orleans now ranks as the 8th most violent city in the world. The homicide rate in the Big Easy, 70 per 100,000 residents. That's more murders than in Juarez, Mexico. And here's something else you might not know. A new issue is forcing many residents to flee liberal states, immigration. For the first time, progressive voters in New York City, Chicago, San Francisco are ranking illegal migration as a major concern. That reality has not swayed Governor Gavin Newsom in California. Beginning this week, his state will offer free health care to all undocumented people. Back after this.
Do you want more online safety and privacy? I know I do. That's why I started using NordVPN. It guards me against various internet threats. Digital trackers, malicious websites, and malware-infected downloads? Back off. I choose to browse with more confidence. I choose NordVPN.
To avoid digital threats, turn on NordVPN. It's trusted by millions of users. Just visit NordVPN.com. One of the fastest VPNs on Earth will block web trackers, malicious websites, and malware-ridden downloads. It will also encrypt your internet traffic while maintaining a smooth connection. So improve your digital privacy and protection against hackers with one simple click. Get the special deal at NordVPN.com and enjoy safer internet daily. NordVPN. Cybersecurity built for every day.
Thank you for listening to the O'Reilly Update. I am Bill O'Reilly. No spin, just facts, and always looking out for you.
News Talk STL. KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. The weather may foul up your weekend. Correspondent Rita Foley reports.
Millions of Americans are going to see some bad weather. The National Weather Service says a wintry mix could make for dangerous traveling conditions through today from the Pacific Northwest into parts of the nation's midsection. The Northeast should expect heavy, wet snow and gusty winds. Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. The Weather Service warning power may get knocked out in some areas there. Parts of North Carolina, Virginia, and West Virginia may see ice from freezing rain, and that, say forecasters, could make travel hazardous there tonight and tomorrow. I'm Rita Foley.
The longtime head of the National Rifle Association, Wayne LaPierre, has resigned his position. LaPierre had come under scrutiny for allegedly diverting tens of millions of dollars from the NRA and spending organization funds on personal trips, no-show contracts, and other questionable expenditures. Meanwhile, Attorney General Merrick Garland says a 2022 gun law requiring stricter background checks for young people is paying off.
In the 19 months since the Act's passage, those checks have already kept 527 firearms out of the hands of young people who are prohibited from having them.
Those denied a gun purchase include a person convicted of rape, a suspect in an attempted murder case, and someone who has been involuntarily committed for mental health treatment, according to the Justice Department. The leader of the Lebanese militia Hezbollah says his group must retaliate after a presumed Israeli strike hit a Beirut neighborhood this week, killing a senior Hamas official. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 25 points, the Nasdaq rose 13, the S&P advanced 8. More on these stories at townhall.com.
In Dinesh D'Souza's new blockbuster movie, Police State exposes the government's plot to control MAGA conservatives.
These are anti-government.
We have freedom of religion and freedom of speech.
Violent extremists, and they must be dealt with.
MAGA Republicans threaten the very foundation of our republic.
Mass surveillance, censorship, and armed attacks. There's nowhere to hide.
FBI, we have an arrest warrant.
15 marked units on my property.
Military-styled soldiers pointing an automatic rifle at my head.
Are we becoming a police state?
It may be the Russia other people grew up in, but not my America.
Directed by Dinesh D'Souza, Debbie D'Souza, and Bruce Shuey, Police State sounds the alarm.
What we need is a person, and then we go find out what crime you did. How did we give the state this kind of power?
Police State, they have their lists. Are you next?
If they're coming for me, they're coming for you.
Police State. Buy it or stream it now at salemnow.com. salemnow.com.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Watch for a little light snow or light rain mix this evening through about 2 a.m. Now, ground will be warm enough to melt it on the pavement if we do see some flakes, but there could be some minor accumulations on grass and raised surfaces, generally under an inch. Overnight low, not even below freezing, though, 33. 41 in the afternoon, a cloudy, cold, raw day. May see some spots of light rain or mix in the afternoon, but generally just a cloudy, cold day Saturday with a high of 41. Sunday's dry with some sunshine in the afternoon after clouds in the morning, a high of 43. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Rodney and Jen Wallner and the entire Wallner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway. Call them today at 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD.
Hey, it's Tony Colombo. The new year is upon us, and the cleaning pros at Zero Res are starting things off with a bang with what I think is their best offer ever. Book a cleaning in January and mention the Colombo special, and you'll get 3 rooms of carpet cleaned starting at just $119, plus you can take $50 off an air duct cleaning. We trust Zero Res with our home, and after you take advantage of this amazing special, you will too. Just remember to mention the Colombo special when you call 314-474-2020 or book online at ZeroResSTL.com.
Hello, this is Chad Clayman with ClaymanGroup.com, KLAMEN Group.com, where we buy houses direct and as is condition. Did you just inherit a house and you're not sure what to do with it? Maybe it's got a lot of stuff in there and you're really not sure what to do with the stuff and how to sell the house. Well, we do a lot of work with people that inherited property. We're very familiar with the estate courts and the probate courts. So if you have a house you just inherited, please reach out today. We'd love to make you an offer and simplify your real estate situation. KLAMEN Group.com.
Conservative talk for St. Louis.
It's your patriotic right and duty.
The government needs to step up and do its job.
This is News Talk STL.
It's well-balanced conversation.
News, analysis, opinion. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Good afternoon and welcome into Friday's edition of the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show here on a January the 5th, 2024. Starting to get used to saying that. 4:06 in the p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm Tim Jones, my partner, and my wingman here is Chris Arps.
Tim, I don't know about you, man, but, Monday was the New Year's Day, and this has been the longest week in the world to me. This does not seem like it was a shortened week. Thank God it's Friday.
We did so much this week, Chris.
Yeah, that's true.
We celebrated the beginning of the new year on Monday, and by Wednesday, you and I were heading to Jefferson City. We spent a big chunk of our day there, drove back very late at night, did the show yesterday here, We all had a big Missouri Freedom Caucus event this afternoon in St. Charles, and now we're back here in the studio. Chris, I don't know about you. I'm ready to talk to the peoples for about 2 hours, say hello to everybody, give them everything they need to know, go home, and crash on the couch.
I hear you. My wife asked me before I left, she's like, what do you want to do tonight? Do you want to get drunk? I said, you know what, that may be a good idea, just to relax and unwind, because it's been a long week. Even though it's been a short week.
It has been indeed. Joey V's probably got the cocktails ready for us over there, right, Joey? You got the mixers ready to roll?
You know, you had Wild Wine Life man himself, Max was in, right? Ray Maxwell.
Ray Maxwell.
And he dropped off some gifts, so I imagine Becky and Chris are locked and loaded and ready to go with those gifts that he dropped off.
I should be ashamed because Ray left me a bottle of Moscato. And Moscato is supposed to be a woman's drink, I hear, because it's very sweet wine, and I love sweet wine. So if guys want to talk about me, yes, I drink Moscato.
That's all right. we all have our things that we're weird about. We all have our. I think Gabe Pfeiffer often talks about your like embarrassing vices or whatever. The things that look. Every once in a while, we listen to some Air Supply. Whatever.
Air Supply was during my era too.
I'll tell you what. I saw a guy on YouTube the other day. He was a Hispanic dude. He sounded. It was from one of the old reality TV shows. The dude sounded like the lead singer from Air Supply. I was so blown away. It was crazy. Simon Cowell was crying. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was crazy. Welcome to the program, Chris. We got a great show today, of course. Chris, I feel like we haven't spoken to our legal eagle, Zach Smith, in forever. I know we had some holidays and things, and you were off and I was off, and so I feel like we haven't talked to Zach in a while. We're going to talk to Zach at 425 because there's, of course, lots of lawfare going on in Donald Trump land. The Don, the former president, Chris, he's had a good run of luck the last few weeks. The only case that's got him, all bent out of shape is that Colorado case. And, of course, you had the goofy Maine Secretary of State.
Sure.
Some more 14th Amendment cases, Chris, were dismissed in various courts today. They've all been dismissed except for the one in Colorado. And Donald Trump had a few other legal victories. And in addition, Chris, another legal matter, we have the release of the Epstein files. And look at this headline on Fox News. Associates trolling clubs for underage girls, Epstein associates, for underage girls, and Hillary Clinton mention included in latest Epstein document. So not just Bill Clinton, a very unlikely Clinton, a Hillary Clinton mention in the Epstein documents. A lot of people, Chris, heading into the weekend with a little tightly clenched.
Now, Tim, President Clinton has said that he ended his relationship with Epstein about 10 years ago, so he knows nothing about his criminal activities, blah, blah. He's also saying that my name and other people's names are on there. Doesn't mean that we necessarily did anything wrong. I think what we need to see are those flight manifests. Yes. Who took the trips to Fantasy Island or whatever else you want to call it? That's what I want to know, and I think that's what's going to really reveal a lot of things. We need to see the flight manifestos instead of just records from a court case.
We'll speak with Zach Smith at 425 about that, and Dr. Aaron Hedlund at 525, the chief economist at the Show Me Institute. Lots of interesting new economic data coming out. Many economists, Chris, predicting Armageddon once again as we head into 2024. Those expectations of complete chaos did not come to fruition. We had a decent 2024, although it was difficult and bumpy and rocky. We did not have the ultimate recession, but many of them are predicting that the fiscal cliff is still straight ahead.
I was
just going to say, though, your good friend, my good friend, the show's good friend, Ray Maxwell, Chris, has called in to defend you on your love of Moscato.
Defend me, Ray.
I am defending you. Thank you for all the kind plugs, but I just have to tell you, and I say it in every video, drink what you enjoy. Never apologize for it. There's nothing wrong in drinking only Moscato. And also, in Chris's defense, he follows my other thing where I say, cheat on your beverage, stay loyal to your spouse. So he does try other wine.
I was getting worried there for a second, Ray. I was like, where are you going with this, Ray? You about to get me in trouble? Becky listens to the show, so be careful. Where are you going with that? Thank you, Ray. I appreciate that. You know, the reason why I feel bad about drinking Moscato, because the rappers mention Moscato as the drink that they get for their women while they drink something a little harder. So that's why I think it's kind of a soft drink for a man.
no. I mean, drink what you enjoy. You can make some killer cocktails with Moscato, by the way.
That's true.
And there's a few videos on that.
That is true.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Ray.
Wayne. Happy New Year and have a great weekend, my friend.
Yes, Ray
See
Maxwell.
you guys on the Bochy Court.
Yes.
Yes,
Happy New
sir.
Year.
Yes, sir. Ray Maxwell there of Wild Wine Life. Go to Facebook, Wild Wine Life. Give him a like, and he'll appreciate you very much for it. Ray's a great guy.
Yeah.
So,
Tim, there's an event today. Let's talk about it.
yes. So
Excellent event.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you for being there. I want to thank Joe Rush and Jeff Allen for being there as well. News Talk STL was well represented. And Chris, I have a question for you in just a second. So we had the launch of the Missouri Freedom Caucus today in the beautiful environs of the city of St. Charles. City of St. Charles, historic city, so cool. You really feel the history on those cobblestone streets. We did the press conference in front of the first Capitol. Folks, if you haven't visited Main Street, St. Charles, I'm going to give them a free plug here. It's just a great place. Take your family, take your friends. Tons of great restaurants, lots of great shops, lots of great history. You can visit the really amazing setup they've got there at the first Capitol. Then we went down to
Have you ever been? Wait, before. Have you ever been in the old Capitol?
Yes.
I've never been. I've always passed by. I've never been in there.
Go upstairs sometime. It's
Okay.
really cool. They got an old House chamber and an
Okay.
old Senate chamber.
Should do that.
We then went down the road to our good friend Tom Smith's brand new business. We'll give him a free plug as well because it's so cool.
It is.
The Soda Museum, just outstanding event center and museum celebrating America's soda history with a heavy focus on, of course, what Tom believes, the king of cola, Coca-Cola. A lot of Coca-Cola in there, but a lot of other interesting things. And he's got an arcade and a pizza kitchen downstairs. Chris, we had 80 RSVPs, over 150 people packed into the Soda Museum to celebrate the launch of the Freedom Caucus. I am the state director for the Freedom Caucus. I'm the advisor to them. I will be working for the State Freedom Caucus Network. It was to launch the conservative North Star, the conservative conscience of a Republican supermajority. Every supermajority, every majority, when it gets fat and happy, it sometimes needs a course correction. And our goal is to make sure that we continue to propound bills that reflect the Republican Party platform. Nothing more than that. And so you saw a lot of good friends there. And I want to know, Chris, while I was up herding the cats and going through all the speechifying, what did folks have to say about News Talk STL? Do we have any fans there today?
Yeah, a couple people said that they do listen to the show. They enjoy it. They love Vic Porcelli, of course. They were just amazed that we work with Larry Connors, the I was going to say old,
dean.
but yeah, the dean,
Yeah.
the dean of the news team at TV News. But yeah, we have listeners. And when you mentioned News Talk STL, we got a very favorable response. So the message is getting out. St. Charles County is a conservative county. That's our people out there.
It is. You can listen to us on 94.1. You can listen to us on 101.9 and here in the St. Louis Metro. You can download our app and stream us around the planet. You can take us with you wherever you might go. So hello and thank you to all of our News Talk STL Nation fans that showed up for the launch of the Freedom Caucus. It's going to be a wild ride. The Freedom Caucus is it's an inclusive group, but it also is going to hold people's feet to the fire of voting for bills that are in the Republican Party platform, and we need to have that mentioned. So it was great to have. We had the president of the national network, Andy Roth, with us here today, and we had Congressman Eric Burleson as our keynoter. It was so great to see Eric, and he has really hit the ground running in Washington D.C.
And you also had a representative of the Illinois House Freedom Caucus.
Yes,
he stopped by. You know, it was a very festive, fun event. It was always nice to catch up with old pals. Unfortunately, we did have a sad note.
Yes.
That we heard about today. Tim, you want to expound?
Yeah,
on it?
Chris, I'm glad you brought that up. So, we don't want to. We'll get serious here for just a second because we learned that one of our most diehard patriots, Brenda Webb, unexpectedly, Chris, passed away early this morning. We don't know the cause of death. It sounds like it may have been natural causes. May have been something related to heart. We don't know. But Brenda Webb passed away. Brenda Webb has been the queen bee freedom fighter patriot for the St. Charles County region. She's somebody who definitely held people's feet to the fire. She's one of Senator Bill Eigel's closest volunteers and allies. Many of us just saw her at the Capitol this week. She was full of vim and vigor and life. And you know what, though, Chris? She's now smiling down from us from heaven and saying, y'all get back to work. You got a busy 2024. But it was a very emotional moment. Bob Onder said a lot of nice words about her and led us in prayer. And, man, Chris, as you said before we went on the air, treasure every single day you have with family and friends here on this earth.
Because you just never know. Every day that you have here on this earth is precious. I wake up every morning thanking God for opening my eyes and giving me another day. And you particularly get into that kind of mood when you get our age, Tim, kind of middle age.
Sure.
You're like, what really made me think about mortality is when I went to my 25th high school reunion.
Whoa.
And we had a board of all of our classmates that were no longer with us. And it just made me think and some of our classmates died in late teens, early 20s. And at that time we were in our 40s. And it just made you think they never got to pursue their dreams. They never got to see what they could have accomplished, what was going to happen with their lives. Their lives were taken or snuffed out, at a young age. So that is where I really started appreciating every day that I have, because you're not guaranteed tomorrow.
Yeah, it really makes you get pensive and philosophical when you sit and you try to figure out, and you can't figure out. There is a plan and a destiny that's greater than us. And you sit there and you figure out, well, why was this person only on this earth?
Yeah.
Why was this very good person only on this earth for 15 years? And why am I here for 50 plus? And why is so-and-so taken at this age and this person at that age? Those are questions that we'll maybe know someday, but we won't know now. Yeah. And it is hard to figure out. And so all you can do, Chris, like you said, is wake up, give glory to God, and do what you can while you're here. Every day is a gift. And so do something with it. And we appreciate you spending some of your time listening to us, because we try to bring you information, analysis, insight, knowledge, and fun from time to time. Yes.
Tim, speaking of the Freedom Caucus, there was an event that happened in Ohio that kind of tells why we need a Freedom Caucus to hold Republicans.
Tell the folks about the latest news from Ohio. So Chris, so before the holidays, Governor DeWine, who is a Republican, vetoed a bill.
I think it was last week.
I think it was last week.
I think it was last week.
Governor DeWine of Ohio, who is questionable from time to time on his Republican Party platform and philosophy, vetoed a bill that every other Republican governor in the country has signed, and that is to protect children from the transgender cult and to protect women's sports. Chris and I talked about this at length and got pretty passionate about it yesterday, to protect it from having biological men in it. Exactly. Well, Chris, what happened today?
As you know, Tim, he was pilloried this last week for that vote. He's supposed to be Republican, and he's supporting transgender surgeries for minors. Well, today, the Governor DeWine of Ohio issued an executive order basically stating exactly what he vetoed last week. Now, surgeries for minors will not be allowed in Ohio. So I'm sure that he got a earful from conservative activists. I don't know if Ohio has a Freedom Caucus, but I'm sure they made their voices known as well. And this is just an example of, if you make enough noise and you can make a difference. And this governor changed his mind a week later. And the crazy thing about it, I was reading his answer to this. He basically said that his stance hasn't changed from last week.
I don't understand that.
I don't either. It's like, if your stance hasn't changed for last week, then why are you issuing an executive order that's going exactly against what you vetoed?
His poor staff probably got tired of the thousands of telephone calls, emails, texts, and tweets coming in. Chris, when we have these, so unfortunately, this issue, like so many, has become such a hotbed of politicization, right? It's like you can't even have a conversation anymore about the pro-life versus abortion issue, the Second Amendment versus let's take all the guns away issue. Right. Everybody gets so dug in and passionate and puts on their blinders. But just take a step back for a minute, 35,000 foot. Let's say you have a child who actually is in the point, maybe Doc Onder or Doc Tolbert can text one of us and tell us what the percentage is. Gender dysphoria. You have a child who has a diagnosed case of gender dysphoria, and they really are uncertain about whether, they should be a male or a female, right? And let's say they really have that. Okay, wouldn't the proper course of action be not to go out and immediately fill them full of all sorts of drugs and start committing surgical operations on them, but to give them counseling and therapy, make sure and let them get to an age of majority, and then if they really are dead set that they were a boy born a girl or a girl born a boy, then it's their decision. But do you really think it's wise to be committing committing irreversible operations on children and filling them sort of all sorts of drugs. Because then, Chris, we have the situations where these children grow up to be young adults, and then they go, holy smokes, what did you all do? What did you adults do to me? I want to be the woman that I was born to be. And now I have, my body parts are gone. I can't have children. And now I'm really distressed. And so I'm just saying, I'm not saying that when people become of a certain age that they can't make a decision that they want to do something to their bodies. But do you want to do irreversible things to children?
Exactly.
I guess is my point.
And I have read many, many stories where people that have gotten gender reassignment surgery have regretted it. They were looking at that as the panacea to solve their emotional problems, and it didn't. And, one of the reasons that the advocates for this give is, well, these kids are suicidal and they're on the verge of suicide. So we have to do these radical surgeries to keep them alive. That's BS. Let these kids get some counseling, and then when they become 18 or whatever, then they can do that surgery. But doing these type of surgeries on children is just horrendous, and I don't see how these doctors that perform these surgeries sleep at night. I really don't.
I think you hit the nail on the head right there. All right, folks, we're going to go to a quick break here, so go nowhere. It'll be lickety-split, and we'll be right back with Zach Smith. Legal Felt, the Heritage Foundation. What is going on with all the lawfare against Donald Trump, the 14th Amendment cases? Some more were dismissed today. What's up with that Colorado case? How quickly will the Supreme Court hear that? And what, in general, is the Supreme Court going to be hearing as we head into 2024? All those questions will be answered next on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show here at 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. Welcome home.
Like and subscribe to us on Rumble. News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Watch for a little light snow or light rain mix this evening through about 2 a.m. Now, ground will be warm enough to melt it on the pavement if we do see some flakes, but there could be some minor accumulations on grass and raised surfaces, generally under an inch. Overnight low, not even below freezing, though, 33. 41 in the afternoon, a cloudy, cold, raw day. It may see some spots of light rain or mix in the afternoon, but generally just a cloudy, cold day Saturday with a high of 41. Sunday's dry with some sunshine in the afternoon after clouds in the morning, a high of 43. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Live and local.
Welcome home. And whoosh, sitting in traffic, stuck in a jam, and being entertained by Vic and Thunder Stealing Ken.
This is News Talk STL.
Did you hear that weather forecast? I don't know if that was Steve Templeton. Was that Steve Templeton, Joey, or was that one of the other folks that came over? Steve Templeton today. Yeah, Steve Templeton over at KMO V4. Did you hear that weather forecast? Chilly, right? Maybe some snow, maybe some slick stuff. Be careful going home tonight or out and about if you're out and about later tonight or tomorrow. But it's not going to be dramatic. It's not going to be overwhelming. So if you want to get warmed up, right, and you want to feel good inside, you need to go to Espino's Mexican Grill. Man, that cheesy, ooey gooey goodness, those authentic Mexican specialties, those will warm you up lickety-split. Chef Espino, Roseanne, they prepare those authentic Mexican specialties every single day. This is not, I hate to say it, no offense, this is not the cookie-cutter Mexican restaurant food that you generally see everywhere else around town. No, Espino's is different. And you notice it the minute you walk in the door, the ambiance at Espino's. Beautiful restaurant there at 17409 Chesterfield Airport Road. They've got a huge dining room. It's beautifully decorated, old school Mexican style, old world. And then on, right next to the dining room is, of course, the awesome bar. They've got live music in there, really cool local acts throughout the weekends and also throughout the week as well. Taco Tuesdays, of course. Awesome bartenders. They're fixing up the coldest drinks. They got all kinds of great tequila drink specials and more, right? If tequila's not your jam, well, they've got everything else. They got beer, wine, and all the other spirits. Espino's is the fresh alternative, the delicious fresh alternative. I love Espino's. Been going there for nearly the entire 2 decades it's been open. It's the fresh alternative to your typical Mexican fare. It's right in the heart of it all at 17409 Chesterfield Airport Road. Swing by, get warmed up this weekend at Espino's Mexican Grill.
Congratulations to everyone at Connor Roofing. We chose the Connor Roofing team for our National Best of the Best award for customer satisfaction without telling anyone at Connor Roofing, based on over 30 years of fantastic customer reviews. Rob and Kathy Connor and their team deliver very high-quality roofing, siding, gutters, storm damage restoration at a fair price with integrity. Connor Roofing has had an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau for years. Count on Connor. For an estimate, please visit ConnorRoofing.com. That's CONNER roofing.com.
This is Everett Jones of Jones Air and Water Treatment. For the months of January and February, we're here to make your drinking water, cooking, iced tea, coffee, and other water-based beverages clean, crisp, and free of contaminants. Joey, what do you think of yours?
We use ours here at the station every day, and it's great. There's no cumbersome big bottles, no plastic waste, and it seems endless.
Call us now at 636-899-1040 and schedule your free analysis and let us get you on the way to higher quality water. You can be a filter or buy a filter. Find us on the web at joneswater.com.
I'm Susie Moore, and this is More to the Point. Joe Biden may not have coined the phrase, though he's liable to claim he did. But his infamous warning to Americans to gird their loins ahead of Barack Obama's presidency wasn't just another one of his trademark gaffes. It may, in fact, have been an eerily prescient warning looking a decade plus into the future, only it was his own presidency for which we apparently needed to prepare and protect ourselves. There's another reason to brace yourself, though, as we head into 2024. As of right now, Biden appears intent on campaigning for re-election and, as he doesn't have the most spectacular record to tout, seems to have settled upon demonizing not only his likely Republican opponent, but all those who dare vote for him, whatever their rationale. Just ahead of his planned speech to mark the 3-year anniversary of J6, or what the left treats as eternal political giftmas, Biden's campaign is out with an ad that warns darkly of an extremist threat to our democracy, as we're shown jarring images of J6 in Charlottesville. Perhaps channeling another former Democratic senator who became vice president and later president, Biden's apparently taking the fear tack, hoping to scare a heavily disapproving electorate into voting for him anyway, lest they be mistaken for scary extremists who hate democracy. Gird your loins, you bitter clinger deplorables. Dark Brandon's making his move.
Susie Moore is Deputy Managing Editor for RedState.com. For more to the point and everything Susie Moore, log on to RedState.com. Follow Susie on Twitter at SmoozyQ and keep listening to 1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at Stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. Follow Chris Arps on Twitter at Chris_Arps.
Donald Trump's legal team has asked a federal judge to severely sanction or even hold in contempt special counsel Jack Smith and prosecutors in his office. Trump's team says Smith has continued to submit filings in the federal election interference case following a stay order from the judge. Now, Trump's attorneys want the judge to issue an order for Smith and his team of prosecutors to show why they should not be held in contempt. Special counsel's team declined to comment.
429 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. And Tim, we got a lot of Supreme Court news that is fresh off the wire, and I'm so glad that we have our regular Friday guest back.
Oh, it's all perfectly legal. You are out of order. You're out of order. You're out of order. The whole trial is out of order.
Zach Smith, legal fellow with the Heritage Foundation.
You know, I ask you a lot of predictions. Can you predict what the Supreme Court probably will do with this action? Zach Smith, Happy New Year. Tim and I were talking before the show. We feel like we haven't talked to you in months. How you been?
Most people, I'm doing great, Chris. Happy New Year.
Happy New
most
Year.
people would consider that a good thing. I'm very glad to be back with you guys.
No, we love you, my friend. Hey, a lot of Supreme Court news hot off the press. The Supreme Court has decided to hear the Colorado case. A lot of people are saying, Zach, that this will probably be overturned, but it needs to be a 9-0 decision. What's your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously, I think in anything that has this important, the outcome will be so consequential. You certainly want it to be a unanimous decision. Look, I think it is good the Supreme Court has not only agreed to hear this case out of Colorado, they did so literally minutes before I joined you here on the show today, but the court's agreed to hear on an incredibly expedited basis. Oral argument in the case has been set for February 8th. In Supreme Court terms, that is hyper lightning speed in terms of getting a case in front of the court, getting the justices to hear it. And so I think the fact that the justices have agreed to hear this case, they've agreed to hear it so quickly in the beginning of February, indicates that they'll do their best to get a decision out very quickly as well, and hopefully resolve this very important issue well in advance of the 2024 elections.
Zach, there have been a variety of other challenges regarding the same exact matter, trying to remove Donald Trump from the ballot, filed in a multitude of other states. I've lost track, Zach. I think there's 15, 16, 17 different filings in all those different states. Every single state has kicked out the challenge with the exception of Colorado, and then the goofy unilateral bureaucratic action taken by the Maine Secretary of State. So really, Zach, the entire country, blue states, red states, Colorado's the only one. Zach, my question is, does the Supreme Court often take that into consideration when the exact same argument is being made in a multitude of states and all of the states are pretty much predominantly going one direction? Are the justices, I'm sure they're aware of it, but how aware of it are they, do you think? And are they going to be looking at those cases for where they should go on this as well?
Well, look, I think the fact that majority of states have rejected this shouldn't weigh in on the legal merits of the claim. Of course, the court has considered that type of argument in some of its Eighth Amendment death penalty litigation. There are problems with considering a trend in the states, but I think it certainly weighs into how strong the arguments are from a legal perspective in terms of allowing Donald Trump to remain on the ballot or be removed from the ballot unilaterally by local election officials. And I think anyone who looks at some of the reasoning the Colorado Supreme Court used, essentially saying that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which allows for those who have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States to be removed from the ballot, the Colorado Supreme Court said that constitutional provision is self-executing, meaning Congress doesn't need to pass a law and procedures to implement it. It's very problematic. And I think we see that with the action that the Maine Secretary of State took unilaterally on her own, essentially deciding that in her view, Donald Trump had engaged in insurrection and she was going to remove him from the primary ballot there in Maine. And of course, I'm sure she's not doing that for partisan political purposes or anything like that.
Never.
Of course, I'm being facetious there. But look, this is incredibly problematic for a number of reasons that the courts and these individual election officials have decided to take these actions. But I think it's good that the Supreme Court is moving quickly to resolve this very contentious issue.
Zach, you and your partner are going to have a heck of a SCOTUS 101 podcast next week. Another big Supreme Court decision out of regarding Idaho and abortion. Give us the update on that, sir.
Yeah, these are actually two cases, Moyle versus United States and Idaho versus United States. And again, the Supreme Court just agreed to hear these cases right before we came on the air. But essentially, the state of Idaho passed a law essentially prohibiting abortion except in several very limited circumstances, like if the life of the mother is in jeopardy or something along those lines. A federal district court in Idaho enjoined that law, said it couldn't take effect because it violated a federal provision, colloquially known as EMTALA. Basically, that provision deals with when hospitals, emergency rooms receive federal funding when they have to treat individuals, even if they can't pay. Now, the federal district court in Idaho said that the Idaho provision violated EMTALA. That ruling was being challenged. And so the Supreme Court has actually taken the somewhat extraordinary step of intervening, granting what's called a certiorari before judgment, meaning stepping in before the Court of Appeals has had a chance to weigh in on this matter and decided to consider the case on its merit. And I think, again, that's a wise move by the court. You're seeing this EMTALA-type challenge being aggressively pushed by the Biden administration. You're seeing the laws in other states being challenged on a similar ground. And so the Supreme Court is essentially getting out in front of this issue and deciding to go ahead and resolve it on the merits.
Zach Smith, our guest here this afternoon, legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation, co-host of the podcast SCOTUS 101. Zach, what is the current status of affairs regarding the cases you and I love to geek out on, those administrative review cases? I don't want people's eyes to glaze over because, Zach, right, we always talk about the administrative state, right? So for all the small business owners in our audience who are listening right now, listen closely. Zach, there's a whole set of cases that have finally made it up to the Supreme Court that are going to challenge something called Chevron deference. Zach, since we've turned the page in the new year, we've all groggily come out of the holidays. Remind us what Chevron deference is and how this could be such a big deal for the entirety of the economy of the United States of America.
Yeah, look, it is somewhat, coma-inducing if you get into the weeds of the Chevron deference doctrine, but it's very important. Essentially, it's the idea where courts over the past several decades have said that they're going to defer to the interpretation of a rule or statute that unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats make if the rule or statute is ambiguous. And so essentially, courts have abdicated their duty, essentially, to say what the law is and said, you know what, we're going to defer to these bureaucrats in deciding what the law says and how they should act. And so it really reaches some absurd results when you essentially have bureaucrats deciding their own powers and the scope of their own authority. And so, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to see why that is so problematic. And so this has been a hotly contested issue for many, many years. As you mentioned, Tim, the Supreme Court has finally decided to weigh in on this issue, and everyone should circle January 17th.
Okay.
About 2 weeks away. It's a Wednesday. The court's going to hear two cases, Relentless versus Department of Commerce and a case called Loper-Bright, where essentially the court is being asked to reconsider the Chevron doctrine and essentially do away with it. And this would allow courts to more actively review rules and regulations and statutes and not defer to what bureaucrats say those rules, regulations, and statutes mean.
Zach, artificial intelligence has been in the legal news for the past week and a half or so. Last week, disgraced attorney Michael Cohen gave artificially intelligence-generated cases to his lawyers that were false. And also, Chief Justice Roberts gave a talk on the advantages and perils of artificial intelligence in the law. What's your view, sir?
Yeah, look, it's all. I'll give some. This isn't legal advice, but just common sense advice, I think.
We'll give you $1.
If you're relying on a disbarred attorney to do your legal research for you, maybe not the best idea, particularly when they're using artificial intelligence to generate fake cases. And it's somewhat interesting. I don't think Michael Cohen did himself any favors because he actually used those fake cases in a motion to terminate his essentially probation early. And so I doubt the judge is going to be very sympathetic to that motion in light of this. But look, I think it highlights a big issue that many judges, many courts are confronting right now. Artificial intelligence can be a very useful tool. It can do a lot of things, including generating some rudimentary legal documents, do some rudimentary legal research. But we found out it makes up things, including cases, law. And so there's actually a string of very fascinating cases where lawyers have used artificial intelligence to essentially cheat, do their work for them. And artificial intelligence has gotten them in trouble because it's made up cases and case law that is favorable to them. And when a judge goes to try to pull it, it doesn't exist. And so that's obviously bad for lawyers, bad for clients. And I think Chief Justice Roberts, in his year-end report, was essentially saying, look, this is new technology. It has the power to be very transformative, as was the move from kind of using old case books to do legal research to using computers and search engines. This can be a similar type of transformation. But as with those other moves into a new era of technology, we have to be cautious and careful, and everyone needs to understand the advantages and perils of using this new technology. And unfortunately, right now, too many lawyers and judges don't understand the shortcomings and perils of this new technology.
Zach, you made note of the fact on your Twitter feed at TZ Smith on Twitter, Zach, that the Supreme Court of the United States issued their end-of-year report at the very end of the year. Now, Zach, is this kind of your typical governmental end-of-year report where if we started reading it by the third paragraph, we'd all be asleep and we would have a cure for insomnia? Or, Zach, were there any interesting nuggets in the court? This has been a court, Zach, right, under fire, especially from the left. The left thinks we need to pack the court, change the court, we need to impeach Clarence Thomas because we don't like his rulings, right. So on and so forth. So, Zach, anything interesting in that end-of-year report?
Well, I guess it depends, Tim, on what you consider interesting. If you're kind of a legal nerd, like kind of the mundane minutiae of judicial administration, you may find it more interesting than others. But, this is what Chris was talking about a minute ago. This is a report Chief Justice John Roberts issues every year on New Year's Eve, kind of summarizing things for the federal court system, how it's gone the previous year. He didn't dive into any of the ethical concerns, the code of ethics for the justices, requests for recusals, and instead focused the bulk of his report on AI, artificial intelligence, and the use of technology by the courts. And so for anyone looking for anything more juicy than that, they'll have to stay tuned to see if anything else comes out.
All righty.
We've been speaking with Zach Smith, legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation and co-host of the podcast SCOTUS 101. Zach, it was great to talk to you again. Welcome back. Have a great weekend and a happy new year. And we look forward to talking to you all year about these important Supreme Court cases and other cases, my friend.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Great to be back, and happy new year to both of you as well.
Thank you, Zach. Tom, when we come back, Chris's Corner, I'm going to talk about Hunter Biden. That has kind of gone by the wayside a little bit with everything that's going on. And a particular case the Democrats are trying to use against President Trump.
Interesting.
Is that a good tease?
I love it.
All right.
I'm curious. I hope everyone else is.
Right.
You should be.
All right. It's 4:42. Chris's Corner when we come back. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
Made in St. Louis for St. Louis. It's News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Watch for a little light snow or light rain mix this evening through about 2 a.m. Now, ground will be warm enough to melt it on the pavement if we do see some flakes, but there could be some minor accumulations on grass and raised surfaces, generally under an inch. Overnight low, not even below freezing, though, 33. 41 in the afternoon, a cloudy, cold, raw day. We may see some spots of light rain or mix in the afternoon, but generally just a cloudy, cold day Saturday with a high of 41. Sunday's dry with some sunshine in the afternoon after clouds in the morning, a high of 43. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
The Vic Porcelli Show.
Ken Williams has the reins Monday. He'll do a great job, I know that. Ken and I will see you together Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock.
Weekday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL.
Folks, I want to tell you about an incredible local small business we have, a gem, maybe pun intended, a diamond truly, not in the rough. Newstedter's Fine Jewelers. Okay, enough with the jokes, Tim. Newstedter's Fine Jewelers, let me tell you, folks, they have been St. Louis's neighborhood jewelry store since 1961. Yes, Richard has built a multi-generational one-stop shop for all of your jewelry and your diamond needs. It's located at 2961 Daugherty Ferry Road. A beautiful, welcoming place is Newstedter's Fine Jewelers. We were just there. Suzanne and I were just there last week, and it was one of those things where, we didn't know, where else to turn. It's something that Suzanne's been wanting to get addressed for years, and it was some complicated stuff she had with a couple different rings, and it's a bunch of stuff I didn't understand. But we walked in, and Richard and his team were like, "Oh yeah, we'll handle that. We'll do it right now." And the prices are incredibly reasonable, incredibly fair, and the product is amazing. Did you know, folks, that Richard is one of the few remaining master hand engravers in the country? His work, his style is widely celebrated all across the nation. His designs are second to none. You're going to get something really special and really unique from Newstedter's. They take really great pride in being local and family-owned. You'll feel good about shopping there, and you will become part of the family. They do everything at Newstedter's. any jewelry repair necessary. Master engraving, as I mentioned, jewelry appraisals. They have beautiful, fine watches, and they'll repair those as well. Pearl and bead restringing, quality ring resizing, and, of course, their diamonds. Their diamonds are so awesome, they named their website after them. Newsteaders can be found 24/7 at wowdiamonds.com. Check out Newsteaders Fine Jewelers anytime and 24/7. As I said, always available at wowdiamonds.com. That's wowdiamonds.com.
From home improvement to replacement, do-it-yourself electrical projects can be shocking. That's where Grasser Electric can help. They've been lighting up St. Louis for years. From ceiling fans and dimmer switches to repair or replacing your electric. No job is too big or too small for your home or business. Grasser Electric will even install emergency backup generators. So call Grasser Electric today before the sparks start to fly. 636-441-5200 or go to grasserelectric.com.
Getting a new floor for your home can be intimidating and a little scary, but that's not the case when you go to Michael's Flooring Outlet. Katie here, and my mom and dad used Michael's, and they had a great experience. They've been a locally owned and operated family business for more than 30 years. You want variety? Michael's has carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, luxury vinyl, natural stone, and many other options. Shop in-store at one of their 3 locations in Creve Coeur, Dardine Prairie, or St. Peters. Check out everything that Michael's has to offer at igotfloored.com.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
They're spending in ways that suggest they're happy with their financial circumstances. We're seeing a huge number of new businesses being formed, that an investment in American businesses that suggest confidence in the future of the economy. I think those are all good signs.
448 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arp show. Tim, most Americans, when you look at the polls, are not happy about their financial circumstances, about their future. But we know one family that has done quite well the last few years, and their investments and things that they have involved with has done quite well.
Who would that be?
That is the Joe Biden, Hunter Biden crime family. Now, the past couple of weeks, we've had all of the issues with Trump on the ballot, off the ballot, and all that. Hunter has kind of fallen off the radar
Ever
screen
since
a little
that press
bit.
conference
Exactly,
he did.
exactly. He has fallen off the press's radar screen, but he is back, and we'll talk about what's coming up with him here on Chris's Corner.
Chris.
And if you don't know, now you know.
And now, Chris's Corner.
Yeah, Hunter Biden is in big trouble, as we all know. The evidence is stacking up. If you care to see it, it's on a lot of websites, Republican, conservative websites, detail all of his crimes. Even if you want to know more information, just go to the House Oversight Committee. They have a page dedicated to Hunter Biden's crimes. The Democrats know that it's getting bad for them. So what they are trying to do to deflect the criticism from Hunter and Joe Biden is they're bringing up a old Trump derangement syndrome issue that they used when Donald Trump was president. And that was the emoluments clause. As you all remember, Donald Trump used to own the Trump Hotel in downtown Washington, D.C. It used to be an old post office. And a lot of foreign governments stayed at the hotel. A report of foreigners representing foreign governments, stayed at his hotel. We had a report came out yesterday that said these foreign governments, I think there was 5 or 6 of them, spent $7.8 million with the Trump organization. Now, the Trump organization can't tell who is going to stay at their hotels or not. Tell them don't stay at our hotels. That's all was a BS charge. But one thing that they won't say in these reports about this is that Donald Trump, the Trump organization, gave that $7.8 million back to the Treasury. They didn't keep any of that money because they knew it was going to be a conflict. So they are bringing up this emoluments case because Hunter Biden case is getting more and more serious. House Republicans in the House Oversight Committee are planning a trip, Tim, to Mississippi to hear from a guy named John Langston, who is a disbarred ex-lawyer who did business with Jim Biden. Joseph Langston represented infamous trial lawyer Dickie Scruggs when Scruggs was charged and convicted of bribing a Mississippi judge. According to ProPublica, Langston also pleaded guilty in another Scruggs-related bribery scandal. Langston later became business partners with James Biden, and when Langston was appealing his own charges, his law firm wired hundreds of thousands of dollars to James and Sarah Biden's company, according to Comer. Quote, the committee is interested in the nature and purpose of these payments, which totaled $187,000 while Joe Biden was serving as vice president. Comer and Jordan wrote to Langston on November 9th. In recent years, Hunter Biden has tried his hand, as we know, as an artist. And there is a lot of people that the next person that they are going to depose in this Hunter Biden scandal is the owner of the art gallery that is paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for this art. So the noose is closing in on the Hunter Biden crime family, and this deflection of trying to say that President Trump received money from foreign governments through his hotel is going to fall by the wayside. Hunter Biden, I tell you, I can't wait more into the year when we start hearing more about these cases because Hunter Biden is in a lot of trouble, Tim, and that's Chris's Corner for today.
Chris, again, so like what we did with the whole transgender cult thing, where I think we boiled it down to its essence, and we asked people, should minors be subjected to irreversible surgical operations and experimental drug treatments? The answer is no. With the Biden family, I mean, come on, Chris. If you do the Tony Colombo flip test or the Ed Stoit principle to this of Vic Porcelli, and you just step back and you go, for the love of all things, if the Bidens were Republicans, they would have all been run out of town on a rail a long time ago by the media, especially the media, and the left-wing lunatics that run D.C. They wouldn't have stood for this. But we're supposed to pretend that nothing Hunter Biden does is connected to or affects Joe Biden in any way possible.
Tim, I know it drives me crazy as a non-attorney. I want to ask you, does it drive you crazy when you hear the media continually say that there is no evidence against Joe Biden? They equate evidence with proof. You can have evidence. What you have to do is prove the evidence, correct? I mean, does that drive you crazy when they keep saying there's no evidence, no evidence?
Yeah, that's an improper statement because I don't. There's a lot of people in the national news who have law degrees. There's a ton of them on Fox News, like Shannon Bream and others. Those are the smart newscasters. I'm assuming that there's some recovering lawyers on CNN and MSNBC as well. Chris, you're 1,000% correct. Yeah. Evidence is simply a piece of information. Yeah. You're telling me there's no evidence? That would be like saying that there's nothing out there that's nefarious or even questionable about Hunter Biden. There's mounds of evidence. Now, does that equate to, as you said, proof that he or his family engaged in illegal or unethical conduct? That's a question for the American voters and maybe a jury someday to decide. But to say that there's no evidence, that is the most ridiculous statement out there. How much more evidence do they want, right?
Yeah, I'm telling you, if you are interested in this case and want to follow and really want to get a lowdown of all the evidence against Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, go to the House Oversight Committee. They have a page that's dedicated to all the evidence that they have acquired. And also, if you want a good breakdown of it, I wish he would have been president when I was working for him. Ted Cruz, his podcast, The Verdict, they had a two-part special where they broke down with Comer all of the evidence. And this is evidence that's very, very provable to me. And it's a blind man can see that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden were engaged in criminal activities. They were bribed, and Joe Biden did things to help Ukraine and all of these other countries.
And for all the liberals out there who like to play the gotcha game, okay, guys, you just said then name one thing. Okay, Hunter Biden with no recognizable skills or talents was placed on the board of a foreign gas company named Burisma. And he was then paid millions and millions of dollars for what reason and purpose? That's one example of about 30 that we could go through right now. He met with the Moscow mayor and received money from her.
We got visual,
right?
We got that, and we got visual evidence with pictures of him on the golf course with all of Hunter Biden's business partners while he was saying, I never had any talk. I never met with them, never saw them, never talked with them, nothing.
The text messages with the Chinese oligarchs and business owners, the 10% for the big guy. Do we need to go on and on and on? Because Chris, we could do the rest of the show. We could pull up any sort of news articles or websites that have listed up. We could pull up Ted Cruz's podcast and play it. It would take us hours to get through all of the evidence. Stop saying there's no evidence.
Probably the most convincing thing for me is the event at the popular Washington, D.C. restaurant that had the Russian oligarch whose husband was the mayor of Moscow.
Yes.
They met with Hunter Biden and his business partners there, and Joe Biden showed up. And then I think it was 3 or 4 hours after this dinner, $3 million was wired to Hunter Biden.
For what reason?
To Hunter Biden's business accounts. You also have the other incidents where Joe Biden's brother received $200,000 from a foreign company. The exact same day, $200,000 is wired to Joe Biden's bank account. I mean, the evidence to me is overwhelming.
And when you do the calculations, there's a lot of 10% coming out of these large payments.
I ain't good in math, but I know 10%.
Yeah, me too. And I'm not good either. And if you really want to, the other thing, the Ted Cruz podcast. And also, Chris, how about the 2-hour interview of Tucker Carlson with Tony Bobulinski?
Yeah.
I mean, do we need to go on and on and on? No, we don't need to. It's a mountain of evidence.
And also, John Sullivan's Just the
There's
News.
another
he
one.
has done incredible news, getting a lot of information from these FOIA reports. 507 Speaker's stump speech, and then we're going to have who we usually have. I don't have my sheet here. Aaron Hudlin. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
Tony Colombo here, reminding you to visit my friends at Bluff City Outdoors in Alton before your next trip into the great outdoors. For decades, Bluff City Outdoors has covered all the needs for area fishermen, and they'll always have all the best bait, tackle, and gear for your next trip on the water. And now they cover all your bow hunting needs, including their state-of-the-art indoor archery range and techno hunt system, open every day for you to come shoot, or you can join a league. Follow Bluff City Outdoors on Facebook and learn more at bluffcityoutdoors.com.
Are you a natural leader driven by the desire to make a lasting impact? Is your deepest calling to be an elected official making a real difference? Now, picture yourself with the power to shape the future in St. Louis City. St. Louis needs your leadership now more than ever. The urgency is real. The Republican Party, City of St. Louis can help you file, be your guiding force, and support you during the campaign. Contact stlouisrepublicans.com and step into your destiny.
Paid for by St. Louis City Republican PAC, Curtis Farber, Treasurer.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness 101. Wellness 101 is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on News Talk STL. For more information, visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
The Freedom Principle and News Talk STL invite you to a special St. Louis City Town Hall on Friday, January 12th at the Immaculate Heart of Mary Church. Join moderator Tim Jones and expert panelists for a crucial discussion, Building a Better, Safer St. Louis City. Learn what legislators are doing in Jefferson City to protect and build a safer community for all citizens. The St. Louis City Town Hall is free and open to the public. Visit freedomprinciplemo.org for more information.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefontaine, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 101.9, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. The Supreme Court will decide whether former President Donald Trump can be kept off the 2024 presidential ballot because of his efforts to overturn his 2020 election loss that culminated in the U.S. Capitol attack. The justices Friday agreed to take Trump's appeal of a Colorado case, including themselves in the presidential campaign and acknowledging the need to decide quickly. Voters will soon begin casting presidential primary ballots across the country. The court will be considering for the first time the meaning and reach of a provision of the post-Civil War 14th Amendment, barring some people who, quote, engaged in insurrection, unquote, from holding public office. A Colorado court ruled Trump should not be on the Republican primary ballot, and he appealed. Relatives of the hostages still held by Hamas gathered today at the site of the music festival that was raided by the terrorists on October 7th to remind the nation that they are still not home. Michael Levy says he wants his kidnapped brother Or Levy to be reunited with his 2-year-old son Almog.
My little brother O had to witness his wife being murdered in front of him before he was kidnapped into Gaza. That morning, we realized that the 2-year-old Almog was left without a mother. And I knew I had one mission in life, to bring little Almog's father back.
Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says that the war in Gaza would go on until all the hostages still in captivity are returned. A magnitude 4.1 earthquake has shaken a wide area of Southern California. The U.S. Geological Survey says the quake struck at 10:55 a.m. Friday and was centered about a mile northwest of Lytle Creek in mountains about 45 miles east of downtown Los Angeles. More at townhall.com.
In Dinesh D'Souza's new blockbuster movie, Police State exposes the government's plot to control MAGA conservatives.
These are anti-government.
We have freedom of religion and freedom of speech.
Violent extremists, and they must be dealt with.
MAGA Republicans threaten the very foundation of our republic.
Mass surveillance, censorship, and armed attacks. There's nowhere to hide.
FBI, we have an arrest warrant.
15 marked units on my property.
Military-styled soldiers pointing an automatic rifle at my head.
Are we becoming a police state?
It may be the Russia other people grew up in, but not my America.
Directed by Dinesh D'Souza, Debbie D'Souza, and Bruce Shuley, Police State sounds the alarm.
What we need is a person, and then we go find out what crime you did. How did we give the state this kind of power?
Police State, they have their lists. Are you next?
If they're coming for me, they're coming for you.
Police State. Buy it or stream it now at salemnow.com. salemnow.com.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Watch for a little light snow or light rain mix this evening through about 2 a.m. Now, ground will be warm enough to melt it on the pavement if we do see some flakes, but there could be some minor accumulations on grass and raised surfaces, generally under an inch. Overnight low, not even below freezing, though, 33. 41 in the afternoon, a cloudy, cold, raw day. It may see some spots of light rain or mix in the afternoon, but generally just a cloudy, cold day Saturday with a high of 41. Sunday's dry with some sunshine in the afternoon after clouds in the morning, a high of 43. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Is your family prepared for the financial burden of losing a loved one?
Are you aware of the cost of a funeral?
Benjamin Schaefer with Senior Memorial could help you qualify for lifetime permanent final expense insurance coverage with no medical exam required.
Just answer a few health questions, and once accepted, your rates never increase.
Do you have diabetes? High blood pressure?
Have you had a heart attack? A stroke?
No problem.
Benjamin Schaefer with Senior Memorial can help protect your legacy.
Call or text 314-866-8886. That's 314-866-8886.
To learn more about permanent lifetime final expense insurance coverage.
Benjamin Schaefer with Senior Memorial could help you qualify for immediate coverage by answering just a few health questions.
Call or text 314-866-8886. Or learn more at memorialplans.com. That's memorialplans.com.
Policies underwritten by Senior Life Insurance Company, not available in all states.
News, analysis, opinion.
What Joe Biden has done is he's proven that he's committed to amnesty and actually not securing our border.
That matters to St. Louis.
To the Biden administration, accept the tools that will change things and we'll get money for Ukraine.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps brought to you by Window World. Simply the best for less. 314-993-1800 or visit windowworld.com. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Donald Trump has not been convicted of leading an insurrection. Maybe he did it. But, he hasn't been charged with it. He hasn't been convicted of it. So you can't really, I don't think it's fair. I don't think there's due process in punishing him for a crime that he was never convicted of. It's not the American way of doing things. And I think as a strategy that it actually hurts the Democratic Party, because I think it discredits them and it makes President Trump kind of into this mythological figure because people can see that this is not fair.
And welcome back to the second hour, the 5 o'clock hour of the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show. It is 5:07 in the p.m. Central Standard Time. Chris, this is like wake up and smell the coffee day on what was a very long week. And Chris, I have a laundry list of things that happened this week that will prove your point to what a long week it was.
Because I think I've been slacking. It's like we had a short week, but I'm like tired, and I feel like we've worked 8 days this week.
Wait till I read you all the things that happened this week. You're going to be like, holy crap, no wonder we're exhausted. So, Chris, we talked about stepping back 35,000 feet and looking at how ridiculous it is to commit life-altering surgeries on minors. Right. We talked about how insane it is to say there's no evidence that the Bidens engaged in any sort of questionable activity, utilizing their taxpayer-funded offices to enrich themselves to the tunes of tens of millions of dollars as Hunter Biden globetrotted around the planet, sniffing coke and hookers along the way. And now, Chris, you got to wonder, when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. goes to the national airwaves day in and day out to defend Donald Trump, then maybe you should sit back and go, yeah, maybe what the left is doing to Trump, maybe that's what's not good for democracy.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is what we would consider an old-school Democrat in the lines of Harry Truman, Scoop Jackson of Mississippi, who was on the Armed Services Committee. Democrats at one time were pro-God, pro-life, pro-family. The real differences in the parties was between capitalists and the blue-collar workers. That
small differences, honestly, in retrospect.
That was the main differences. And RFK Jr. is just a throwback to that. He sees that this is Trump derangement syndrome crap to try to remove him from the ballot for something that he wasn't even convicted for. But to the Trump haters, they hate him, and they can't see past that.
Yeah, you're right. The old left, first of all, they weren't leftists. They were liberals. And
exactly.
As you said, they would argue that we should have a little bit of a larger government. We should have a broader social safety net. Government should do more for people, not less. The working man. And Republicans said, no, we should have a smaller government. It should work more efficiently. Then we had the Reagan Revolution, where Reagan really kind of redefined the Republican Party. But even then, the differences were minute compared to the chasm that they are today. Because now, Chris, we have outright Marxist leftists running the Democratic Party. They want to do things like cut off kids' body parts. They want to instill communist racist theory in schools. They want to bankrupt the nation. They want to eradicate our borders. These people are insane.
And the big difference too, Tim, is they're not afraid to admit.
No,
that
they're not anymore.
I mean, you got Bernie Sanders. Hey, I am a socialist Democrat. You've got others that say that they are socialists. And the sad thing, we've seen the reports over the last year or two where young people are saying that they are really ashamed to be Americans, and that they think that the socialist system is a better system than the capitalist system. That's where we are now.
It's really crazy. We're going to talk about a lot of those economic issues that Chris just mentioned at 5:25 with Dr. Aaron Hedlund. He's the chief economist at the Show Me Institute. what does the year ahead bring us? Are we going to have a soft landing? Are we going to have a major recession? What are the tea leaves that Dr. Aaron Hedlund is reading as we turn the calendar page? Chris, before I get into Speaker Stump Speech, check out all these things. I couldn't believe when I read this list. This came from a little synopsis that National Review does at the end of each week, and I couldn't believe how long this was. Okay. All this week, Chris, this all happened in 1 week. The Claudine Gay scandal reached a crescendo, and she resigned from the presidency of Harvard. The whole issue that you described in Ohio with Governor DeWine came to a head this week with the reversal of his decision to veto a bill that he then just signed an executive order that was exactly the same as.
But he still stands by what he did last week, he says.
Right. We did that. So so we had Claudine Gay. We had the situation in Ohio. We had the Nikki Haley gaffe, the double gaffe. So a few weeks ago, she talked about the fact that she didn't know really what started the Civil War. It's slavery, right? Yep. And Democrats. And then this week, Chris, she doubled down and said Iowa doesn't really matter, and that New Hampshire corrects all things that Iowa voters do.
Wait, before you go on, because there's Nikki Haley had another thing today. She said I have black friends. And I can tell you, as a black person and as a minority, the worst thing that you can say to prove that you are not a racist or you are racially sensitive is to bring up the I have black friends. So she did that line yesterday.
Joey and I say that to people all the time. I say we have one.
My black friend said that once last week, yeah.
It's like she's just quicksanding, man.
Oh, my. Yeah, she really is. The Maine Secretary of State, Chris, decided that Donald Trump shouldn't be on the ballot in Maine unilateral. By the way, she's not.
Was that this week?
That was this week.
Wow.
She's not a lawyer. She's not even, as you pointed out, she's not even an elected official. Yeah. She's appointed by somebody.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, somebody said she's an appointed official.
Okay.
Let's see. And then there was a bunch of stuff about Donald Trump and regarding the FBI building. And then, let's see, we had Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin ordering an independent study into possible extremism in the military. Guess what? There's no extremism.
Yeah.
They were going after white males, basically.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, and the border. The border crisis reached peak insanity. It's gotten absolutely out of control. And finally, we had, we had some updates in the Israeli-Hamas war. And we had the Houthi rebels in the Mediterranean, in the Red Sea. And we had on January 2nd, the commander of Hamas's military arm was killed by an Israeli drone. And also China. Some more serious allegations come out about China and its alleged spying into Americans. Chris, all in the first week of the new year.
And then just the other day, maybe it was yesterday, the Islamic State detonated 2 bombs at the Iranian, the memorial service for the guy that ran the Iranian National Guard. So.
No wonder. No wonder we're a little worn out here at the first week of the year. That all happened, folks, between January 1st and today. We're not even 7 days into the new year, and that all occurred that's why you have to listen to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show and News Talk STL every second. I could
have sworn that Maine thing was last week. I believe you. It just seemed like that was last week. Crazy. Maybe it was Colorado. Was Colorado last week?
Colorado was last week.
All right.
Followed by Maine this week. And there we go. All right. We're going to have Dr. Aaron Hedlund on here in just a few moments. But until then, Chris, the other thing, the left, they always do. They are masters of projectionism. Everything they say, the opposite is true. Yeah. And they always want to accuse others of what they are actually doing or already have done.
Mastered it.
The title of today's stump speech is Neither Donald Trump nor Republicans are a threat to democracy, but guess who really is?
Good tease.
Sorry, Joey. Yeah, I was just kind of wandering.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
It's time for the Speaker's Stump Speech, sponsored by Hanson's Tree Service at hansonstree.com.
So, neither Republicans nor Donald Trump are a threat to democracy, but Joe Biden and his team of merry misfit leftists definitely is. I got this from the Make America Great Again pack, and they send out a little newsletter throughout the days, throughout the weeks. And before you turn off your radio because, I just can't stand the orange man bad, I know a lot of you are super fans of Donald Trump, but whether you are a fan of Donald Trump or whether you're not, I'm gonna read this to you, and then you ask yourself, is this hyperbole Is this political gamesmanship, or are these just dead to rights, honest to goodness facts? Here's the facts. Well, first, let me give you the little soliloquy, the way they set this up. Since taking office, Joe Biden has taken actions that threaten our democracy and the American way of life. Joe Biden has abused his power to target his critics, activists, concerned parents, and his main political opponent, President Donald J. Trump. Americans will reject Biden's divisive policies when they re-elect President Trump next November to make America safe, strong, and prosperous again. That is Caroline Leavitt, spokeswoman for the Make America Great Again, Inc. PAC. Now, here are the facts that they offer to back up that conclusory statement. You tell me if you agree this is true or not. Number one, Joe Biden directed his Justice Department to indict his main political opponent. The New York Times, okay, we're even using that type for a source. The New York Times reported in March 2023, almost a year ago. In the past, this is a quote from the New York Times, the old gray lady. In the past, Mr. Biden privately told his close circle of advisors that Mr. Trump posed a threat to democracy and should be prosecuted for his role in the events of January 6th, according to two people familiar with his comments. He also told confidants that he wanted Attorney General Merrick Garland to stop acting like a ponderous judge and to take decisive action. Do you think that the accusation, therefore, that Joe Biden has directed the DOJ to indict his main political opponent is true or not? The facts would argue it is. In November of 2022, going back even further, at a press conference, Joe Biden declared, quote, "Well, we just have to demonstrate that he will not take power by if he does run." Okay, that's Joe Biden speak. I'm making sure that he, Donald Trump, under legitimate efforts of our Constitution, does not become the next president again. So, Joe Biden, in multiple statements there, said that he was not going to let the voters decide. He was going to direct the Department of Justice. He was going to direct Merrick Garland, and he was going to use whatever powers and abilities available to him as president of the United States to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't become the next president. Biden-aligned Democrats, number two, support efforts to remove Trump from the ballot. Well, we've just talked about that throughout the first hour of our show. Colorado Secretary of State Gina Griswold attended a private Biden campaign fundraiser. Oh, how about that? Back in November. Maine's Secretary of State Sheena Bellows was a Biden elector in the 2020 election and took a selfie with Biden when she visited the White House. The FBI raided conservative journalist James O'Keefe's home. Not only did the Biden administration raid the home of this prominent conservative journalist, but it secretly accessed the Project Veritas emails. University of Minnesota law professor Jane Kirtley said the FBI's raid was beyond belief. Biden has a record of targeting journalists. Journalist James Risen wrote in 2016 that under the Obama-Biden administration, the Department of Justice, the FBI, spied on reporters by monitoring their phone records, labeled one journalist an unindicted co-conspirator in a criminal case for simply reporting, and issued subpoenas to other reporters to force them to reveal their sources and testify in criminal cases. Biden's FBI targeted parents at school board meetings, pro-life activists, and Catholics. Fox News reported the FBI targeted pro-life groups, Catholics, and parents attending school board meetings with investigations in an effort to, quote, inflate the sense that they were a domestic terrorism threat, according to new whistleblower reports. The Judiciary Committee found evidence that the White House was heavily involved in the administration's targeting of parents and of Catholics who simply were exercising their First Amendment rights. In one of the most egregious examples, the Washington Times reported last year, Catholic pro-life activist Mark Hoke, this story went national and viral, and his wife are seeking $4.3 million in damages from the Biden administration, accusing the DOJ and the FBI of targeting him over his anti-abortion views. Remember that Joe Biden 2 years ago tried to create a disinformation czar. The New York Post reported that Biden's new board is part of a concerted liberal attack on free speech. And how about the fact that there's a Supreme Court case called Missouri versus Biden that we talked about with Attorney General Andrew Bailey this week. The Washington Times reporting that Joe Biden colluded multiple times with big tech companies to censor free speech rights. As I just told you, it resulted in a Supreme Court case that's being argued right now by our Attorney General and a bunch of other AGs. More than 50 government officials across 13 agencies threatened, cajoled, and colluded with social media companies to silence online speech about topics that the Biden administration didn't like, such as election integrity, the origins of coronavirus, and various COVID-19 restrictions, according to the lawsuit that I was just referring to. I just gave you about 8 minutes of examples. I could go on for a lot further. You tell me, is the not currently in office, once previously elected, twice impeached President Donald J. Trump a threat to democracy, or the everything that I just read to you that have occurred over the last 3 years where Joe Biden is targeting regular Americans, powerful Americans, and everybody in between to silence their free speech rights, to prevent them from exercising them, to put them in jail, and to take his main political opponent off of the ballot in 2024. Andrew Lang, who's been rotting away in the D.C. gulag for over 1,000 days, spoke to us recently about the treatment that he and his fellow January 6th arrestees have experienced. In this country, you're supposed to have a speedy trial by jury, not be left to rot because the current administration doesn't like your political views. The Biden administration is the true threat to American democracy, and I hope Americans make their response to that known at the ballot box this November. And that's the stump speech for today.
And you know, Tim, all those examples that you brought up, they're so blatant and so out in the open. It's like they almost don't try to hide it anymore. And that has given me a theory that, are they trying to inflame people and make them so angry when we see that our government is corrupt? And we see the report where they were saying that our military has become radical, and when now it came out showing that it's not. Are they trying to just get Americans and people so fed up and so angry that hopefully not some type of incident occurs, and so they can point and say, see, they are the domestic terrorists. They are the ones that we need to be afraid of. Because some of this stuff is just so blatant and it's just so out there that it inflames. It makes me angry. I'll never go out and commit an act of violence. But when you see these type of things happening, the media covering up, won't do anything about it. You think that could be a master plan? They want to inflame people so there can be an incident.
They want us, Chris, as you said, they want us to be so mad that we lose our ever-loving minds. Folks, don't take the bait.
Yes.
Here's what you need to do. I know this is frustrating. I know this is aggravating. I know, as Chris said, it's right before our eyes. They're destroying and shredding our border, our Constitution, our education system, and everything else right under our very noses. Folks, you got to go elect the right Republicans in your primary elections this year in Missouri. That's in August. And then in November, we need to show up in such overwhelming droves. Let's make this Ronald Reagan 1984. Let's freaking blow the doors out at the ballot box, and let's make this the red wave it deserves to be.
Do you think we need more Freedom Caucus legislatures?
I think we do. I think Andy Roth needs to start working on the 12th, the 13th, the 14th, the 15th, and so on and so forth. We really got to refine our compass. And folks, you got to, as everything I just read to you, I mean, I can't believe we live in that country right now. It's amazing.
Out of control.
It really is. Chris, when we come back, we're going to talk about something that hopefully won't be out of control this year, but you never know. The economy. Where's the economy going? What do we need to know as we embark on another journey around the sun? We're going to talk to Dr. Aaron Hedlund, chief economist at the Show Me Institute, about all those numbers you need to know when we come back on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
Follow Tim Jones on Twitter at Speaker Tim Jones.
You know, if you're relying on a disbarred attorney to do your legal research for you, maybe not the best idea.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Watch for a little light snow or light rain mix this evening through about 2 a.m. Now, ground will be warm enough to melt it on the pavement if we do see some flakes, but there could be some minor accumulations on grass and raised surfaces, generally under an inch. Overnight low, not even below freezing, though, 33. 41 in the afternoon, a cloudy, cold, raw day. May see some spots of light rain or mix in the afternoon, but generally just a cloudy, cold day Saturday with that high of 41. Sunday's dry with some sunshine in the afternoon after clouds in the morning, a high of 43. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Listen anytime.
It happens
Anywhere.
anywhere.
Everywhere.
Every day continues to bring more news.
With the News Talk STL app. Keep St. Louis's home for conservative talk with you wherever you go. Download the News Talk STL app in the App Store or at newstalkstl.com.
You know, I love talking about my favorite bank, Royal Banks of Missouri. I've been banking with them since I was a very young man, probably in my early 20s. Royal Banks of Missouri has been around since 1964, and so they will be celebrating their 60th, I keep saying 40, their 60th anniversary this year. Royal Banks of Missouri is what we call a community bank. They're not some big out-of-town bank that doesn't know your name and where you're basically just a deposit slip. They get to know their customers because they've been around for a long time, and that's why they want to be around for a long time. Royal Banks of Missouri has 17 locations, including up in Hannibal, Missouri, up in New London, up in that area where our 94.1 listeners live. They also have locations across the river in Jerseyville and in Granite City, Illinois, and also locations in St. Charles, Missouri. Whether you need mortgages, wealth management, or business and personal loans, Royal Banks of Missouri has you covered. I almost forgot to mention that they have 200 free ATMs across the Midwest, so you can access your money when you need it. Look up my friends online at royalbanksmo.com, royalbanksmo.com. Royal Banks of Missouri, the community bank for the community.
Ackerman Toyota has the 2024 models. You're going to be impressed. Check them out in person at Ackerman Toyota, Hampton and Interstate 44. In fact, you've got to see the 2024 Toyota Sequoia. Very impressive. This is the time to buy and get top dollar for your vehicle. Looking for pre-owned? Ackerman Toyota can also help you. Ackerman Toyota at Hampton and 44. AckermanToyota.com. Ackerman Toyota for life.
St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk. Live and local.
I need to know what's going on in my city.
News Talk STL. Dropping truth bombs and making you think. It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
New at 6, today New York City filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against 17 bus transportation companies helping transport asylum seekers to the city. Mayor Eric Adams said the companies broke state law by not paying for migrant care. The city is seeking $708 million in reimbursement costs. The county clerk has not reviewed the lawsuit yet, but Texas Governor Greg Abbott says it is baseless.
And welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show here at 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. 5:28 in the PM on January the 5th.
Tim, before we get to our
Yes.
guys, I want to ask you a legal question
Yes.
about that. How can you sue bus companies who were hired by the governor of Texas to send these people up there, drop them off, do what you got to do? You fulfilled your part of the contract. What legal basis do they have for suing the bus company?
I honestly don't know. I've been trying to think of that cause of action all day. And so in a civil case for damages, okay, you have to have a cause of action and then you have to show damages. I can understand. I'm glad that the damages he's going to show is all the money they're having to spend. He's going to say, look at what this is costing me. But you know what? That's your fault because what's his cause of action? Isn't there going to be what's called an affirmative defense here? Because the bus companies are going to say, you said you're a sanctuary city. We're bringing you the people that you said you wanted to have brought here. Exactly. So what's your cause of action against us? What are we doing wrong? Yeah. You know?
That's very interesting. We'll be looking forward to hearing more about this. In the coming, days.
And I'm going to ask Dr. Hedlund a little bit about this from a little bit of a different angle when we bring him in now and next.
What is your financial situation?
Well, all of our holdings are tied up in the railroads.
Yeah, Reading Railroad, Beano Railroad, Pennsylvania Railroad.
I won second prize in a beauty contest. That's $50 right there.
Are you guys just saying Monopoly stuff?
Yeah, always playing head games with the American people. Yes, Mayor Adams and others are. We welcome Dr. Aaron Hedlund back into the program here as we kick off 2024. Dr. Hedlund, hope you and your wonderful family and everybody at the Show Me Institute had a very happy New Year. Thanks for joining us again.
We did. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Hedlund, I'm not going to ask you about the legal aspects of what we were just talking about, with the bus companies and Eric Adams doing. I'm going to ask you about the financial, the economics of this. Dr. Hedlund, wouldn't it be a much better use of New York City's resources for, once again, a Democratic left-leaning mayor? It's like they're always trying to deal with the symptoms of things instead of what Kamala Harris might say the root causes, right? How about we actually maybe use our time, our treasure, and our resources to go to the White House and say, let's address what's causing these buses to come to New York City in the first place. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting watching these so-called sanctuary cities. They were talking a pious game in the past about how we should just let everybody in, have an uncontrolled border when they felt like the cost wouldn't fall on them. And now when they recognize that cost, they start to speak up. The reality is we have a completely out-of-control border, and we need to secure it.
Dr. Hedlund, we received some sobering news a couple of days ago. The U.S. national debt has exceeded a record $34 trillion. Now, I'll admit, and most people probably admit it too, they can't wrap their heads around that type of money. In layman's terms, tell us, what does a $34 trillion debt mean for us, the average American?
I mean, these are mind-boggling numbers. I mean, not only do we have $34 trillion in accumulated debt, just this year alone, it's a multi-trillion-dollar deficit. That's just the addition to the debt in a given year. And you're right, no one can fathom that. I mean, they could have said that the debt was $800 billion, and that would sound huge. And it's much larger than that. The way to think about it is that we have more debt than the entire U.S. economy produces in economic products and services in a whole year. In other words, our debt to GDP is over 100%. And if we were not kind of a global powerhouse economy with the dollar being so predominant, we really have kind of consequences for potential default. Now, thankfully, we are in that position, so I don't think we're right on the precipice. But we're on a completely unsustainable path. There's a reckoning coming at some point, so we better get ahead of it.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Hedlund, I'd love for you to give our listeners kind of a general. We've been talking a lot about 35,000-foot things today. 35,000-foot overview of where the American economy is as we head into 2024. And one thing I'd like you to get a specific comment on is, where are we on this recession talk? We talked about recession all through last year, and I don't want to be one of those people that talks us in, being blamed for one of the people talking us into recession. But also, on the other hand, Dr. Hedlund, this economy is not strong, is it? It's got a lot of fragility in it. Chris just mentioned the $34 trillion in debt, the massive amount of inflation that the American consumer and small business owner and family is having to deal with. One economist has predicted, one notable economist I saw at the end of the year predicted outright Armageddon for the economy. Where do you come down on kind of where things are and where we might be heading?
So I think my perspective is pretty similar to what it has been for the past several months, which is that we're kind of skidding along in a low-growth territory. Are we going to dip into outright recession? It's a possibility, maybe 50-50, and maybe even a little bit less than that. I'm not convinced we're going to go into full recession, but it's not a binary. It's not we're in recession or the economy's great, right? You can be slow growth is not good either. And the reality is people's purchasing power is lower than it was a few years ago. So that to me is the fundamental big test. Are people's paychecks growing or are they shrinking? And the reality is they're still several $1,000s below what they were, and they're not catching up. Even if you look at 2023, which is being described by the media as this kind of great economic year, best case scenario, people's paychecks adjusted for inflation maybe made up ground by about 0.6%. Right, so they've lost all that money, and they've barely caught up at all. So we're still in a pretty weak situation.
Dr. Hedlund, I want to get your thoughts, first of all, on the U.S. payrolls increased by 216,000 jobs in December. I want to get your thoughts on that. And then I read that in November, the jobs were in healthcare, government employment, leisure, and hospitality. 81% of all jobs were in those sectors. Can an economy be sustained on just growth in those three sectors?
I mean, I would say, yeah, if you just focus on those top-line numbers, 216,000 jobs, 3.7% unemployment, seem like very respectable numbers. They're not gangbusters, but they're fine. But you're absolutely right. So out of that 216,000, 52,000 jobs alone was just government. And then the lion's share of the rest was healthcare, leisure, and hospitality. that's great. I want more jobs everywhere. Where's the manufacturing? Where's everything else? So we need strength across the board, and this is why we need to move in a different direction with policy.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Hedlund, isn't another compounding factor of the difficult situation that we're in the fact that the Biden administration doesn't want to talk about the massive inflationary pressures that they caused with their massive multi-trillion-dollar spending over the last 3 years that resulted in double-digit inflation. And even though it's even though the upward inflationary pressure has eased, those prices have not reversed, right? So if people were paying, just as an example, $2 for a gallon of milk 3 years ago, and now they're paying $4 or $5, the price is there and it's higher. And I don't know that anybody's wages have doubled or tripled in the last 3 years. So the inflation has done its damage, and it continues to do its damage up to the present day, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Prices have gone up by cumulatively about 18% or so since 2021. And I can tell you for sure that wages have not gone up by 18%. And that's where that purchasing power comes into play. People's purchasing power was $4,000 lower through the end of 2022, which is the last time the census came out with data. And there hasn't really been much progress over 2023. So people cannot buy as much as they used to be able to buy. And that's why people are upset about the economy. So whenever the White House acts all confused as to why people aren't cheering in the streets, well, it's because they're poorer in terms of purchasing power.
Dr. Hedlund, our own Representative Ann Wagner, who chairs the House Financial Services Committee, said recently that she is worried about reports of weakening investor appetite for U.S. Treasuries. What does that overall mean for our economy?
Well, this debt situation cannot continue. And I know there have been people who have talked for years and years about how we are on a sustainable path, and they were right, but often ignored. But what we've seen over the past couple of years is that when government goes to extreme excess, bad things happen. And what we saw in 2022 especially was very, very high inflation. We have never had debt this high since World War II, and we're not fighting a world war. And by the way, after World War II, debt rapidly declined as a share of the economy after that. I'm not aware of any plan coming out of the current administration to bring us back towards normal debt levels. So it's going to cause major economic disruption at some point in the future unless we get a handle on it now.
So, Dr. Aaron Hedlund, chief economist at the Show Me Institute. Dr. Hedlund, where are we on with? I feel like we with the holidays and nearly 2 weeks off and kind of a lot of things kind of calming down. We haven't heard a lot about the Fed recently. Where are we, the American consumer, the American taxpayer, the American voter? Where are we with the Fed? What has the Fed said that it might think about doing next? And what do you think about that course of current action?
So the biggest news out of the Fed came back in December when Chairman Powell came out and said, it seems like inflation is moving towards their goal of 2%. That's what he believes. And that therefore, during 2024, there's a pretty decent possibility of some rate cuts. But here's the thing. Wall Street has been clamoring for steep rate cuts, 2-3 percentage points. It's very clear that's not going to happen unless there's a big economic crisis. So I think in reality, what we're looking at in 2024 is that interest rates maybe come down 0.5%, maybe 0.75%. Now, what do I think about it? To me, I think we cannot take our eye off the ball. Inflation has to actually get to 2%. That's the target. You can't hit 3 and say good enough. You have to actually get to 2 and show that it's going to stay at 2. And once there's confidence at 2, then you can go ahead and lower those rates. But I'm a little bit worried that they're going to be premature on it. We'll see.
Dr. Hedlund, the Biden administration is discussing raising tariffs on some Chinese goods. In our economics classes, we read that tariffs are a bad thing. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, I think the tariff discussion is kind of an interesting one because whenever we talk about taxes, the left is all for tax hikes. But then whenever tariffs come up, it's like you can never discuss it. The way I would think about tariffs is it's a tax. So in isolation, I'm not a fan of taxes. Now, that being said, if one were to talk about getting some tax revenue from tariffs and then using that to bring down the income tax rate, that's an interesting discussion to be had. But of course, the current administration is not looking to cut any taxes.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Hedlund, one of the biggest story, actually it was a multiple series of stories this week. There was a lot of retrospectives as to Where did Americans go? Where did they move to in 2023? A variety of data came out from U-Haul, the National Moving Specialist. Some census and population shift data came out as well. And Dr. Hedlund, it once again underscored something that I know you and I and Chris and others have talked about for years, and that's that the big blue states and their big blue policies are convincing people to vote with their feet. There has been an ongoing income migration in this country for over 2 decades now. The stories that were this week were that the pandemic really highlighted and accelerated the differences between the red and the blue states. And the conclusion is, guess what? More people than ever are moving out of big blue America, and more people than ever are moving into big red America. I mean, Dr. Hedlund, at some point, you would think the national media would stop trying to ignore this story because, you know, there is a giant vacuum sucking sound coming out of the north and the east, and it's a blower going into the south and the west, isn't it?
Well, I will have to admit, I am an Illinois native, and I'm very glad to have been in Missouri for a decade now. And I understand why people are leaving Illinois. They've got bad policies, but, you know, there's other things that, you know, can get cold, et cetera. But let's think about California. The fact that California is losing population is the worst indictment of policy because it's such a beautiful state, great weather, and yet people can't afford to live there. It's insane. So they're departing. And so you see people flowing to Florida and Texas and Tennessee and some other places because those are pro-growth, pro-family, pro-freedom states. And I think this is a huge opportunity for Missouri, particularly in the Midwest. If we can really move towards bold policies, we should be vacuuming up all those people from Illinois and other parts of the country to come here.
Dr. Hedlund, last year I pretty much did not look at my investments because the stock market was not doing well for most of the year. But there was kind of a rally at the end of the year, and I was very surprised to see the return on my IRA. I did not expect that. Look into your crystal ball. Do you see a strong stock market in 2024?
It's a good question. I see it as being a kind of a moderate year. I don't think it's going to be a gangbuster year. I certainly hope it's not a bad year. To me, I think the big question is what happens to consumer spending, because consumer spending is, I think, surely going to weaken compared to the end of the year. How much it weakens is a good question. But all signs point to we're not going to have a crisis. So at least if we can avoid that, then people's retirement accounts should hold up okay.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Aaron Hedlund, our guest here this afternoon, here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. He's the chief economist at the Show Me Institute, showmeinstitute.org. Dr. Hedlund, thanks for getting us kicked off in the new year right-wise, and we'll hope to give more of your knowledge and analysis to our listeners throughout the year when it comes to economics, financial news, and, yes, even some of the politics and public policy of our nation and our state. Thank you very much for your time.
Happy New Year.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
As well. 5:43 in the p.m. Chris, producer Joey V just sent us a text.
Uh-oh.
We have the first official announcement of the first entrant into the now vacated Congressional District 3.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen this yet?
No, but we'll talk about it when we come back.
How about we talk about it when we come back?
That's a great tease because I did not see
We
that.
have the first initial announcement. Producer Joey V saw that on the airwaves, and we'll talk about who that is and how many more people we expect to hear from in the days and weeks ahead. Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer not running for re-election. CD3, a gigantic congressional district that includes a lot of the News Talk STL listening area, Franklin County, Jefferson County, St. Charles County, and more. Who has jumped into the deep end first? We'll tell you when we come back here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show at 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
Like and subscribe to us on Rumble. News Talk STL.
What the hell do you have to lose?
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center,
First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Watch for a little light snow or light rain mix this evening through about 2 a.m. Now, ground will be warm enough to melt it on the pavement if we do see some flakes, but there could be some minor accumulations on grass and raised surfaces, generally under an inch. Overnight low, not even below freezing, though, 33. 41 in the afternoon, a cloudy, cold, raw day. And may see some spots of light rain or mix in the afternoon, but generally just a cloudy, cold day Saturday with a high of 41. Sunday's dry with some sunshine in the afternoon after clouds in the morning, a high of 43. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
On the next, Larry Connors, USA.
The co-chair of President Biden's re-election campaign says people don't feel the economic accomplishments, but it will get better.
Larry Connors, USA. Now, weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
You know, end of the year, beginning of the year, we try to get things in order, right? We try to get our finances in order. We try to take stock of all the stuff we got around the house and maybe kind of, downsize stuff, kind of get rid of the clutter, declutter stuff. How about your body? How about your health? You got to get that in order as well. And a great place for you to start to get a holistic exam from top to bottom are my good friends that I see often, Comprehensive Chiropractic and Sports Performance, and the companion business right next door of Comprehensive Integrative Healthcare. All the docs work at both locations. They do different things, different strokes for different folks. Depends on what kind of needs you have. So Comprehensive Chiropractic Sports Performance, those are the folks to take care of people like me. My wife Suzanne went in yesterday, talked to Dr. Sean Patton, and he gave her kind of a wellness check because she was like, I haven't been sleeping well, blah, aches and pains. And he not only did he take care of the immediate aches and pains. She had a kind of a something up in the shoulders, shoulder pinched area. It was really harassing her. But he said, let's talk about your health in general. Let's talk about what you're eating, sleeping, blah blah blah, so on and so forth. So they want to help you. They don't want to just take care of the symptom of the day. They want to take care of you holistically, top to bottom, inside out. So that's what Comprehensive does. Chiropractic does every single day, day in and day out. You athletes, man, that is the place for you. I'm a weekend warrior, and, I've been running, jogging, walking, playing golf, a lot of yard work, running the chainsaws and the weed eaters all the time. And, as you get a little older, you get those weird aches and pains you never had before. They'll take care of all that. Next door, Dr. Kim Patton at Comprehensive Integrative Healthcare, she has developed the Restore Neuropathy program for all of you suffering from the much more serious malady known as peripheral neuropathy. Numbness and tingling, hands and feet, burning pain, unusual loss of sensations. Folks, it's debilitating. I've read the testimonials. I've listened to the people who have gone through this horrible situation, and then Dr. Kim Patton has given them a new lease on life with a 95% success rate, reducing those horrible symptoms from 60 to, 100%. Amazing indeed. Check them out online, cchiropractic.com. That's cchiropractic.com. Or for all your neuropathy needs, CIH.health. That's CIH.health. Let's get ourselves together comprehensively at Comprehensive Chiropractic.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
There was an absolutely brutal attack on Andy Ngo. He is the conservative investigative journalist. Some of those people were sued, and there was a court ruling that let those people off the hook. Did you notice that that wasn't in the big national headlines? Somebody being attacked because they were observing criminal activity.
Weekday mornings, 5:30 till 9 on News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps brought to you by Window World. Simply the best for less. 314-993-1800 or visit windowworld.com. Like us on Facebook at News Talk STL.
I have someone who needs me, someone I've needed so long.
5:48 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show, and before we left, we told you about a entrant in the 3rd Congressional District Sweepstakes. I guess we can call it that. Mary Elizabeth Coleman announced today on another radio station, we're going to talk to her about that, today that she is running for Congress. Tim, your 35,000-foot thoughts on that?
We've done a lot of that today. She's a state senator from Jefferson County. She does present an interesting candidacy. We'll see how many women and or men jump into the race, but there could be, just people have human nature, and if there's 7 guys who are all pretty notable and there's one notable woman, demographically, she might have an advantage, all that. She does have a decent voting record in the House, but her Senate career, Chris, I would challenge her a little bit on that. She did shepherd a bill through last year that many have argued expands Medicaid and Obamacare in the state of Missouri, a welfare expansion bill. So she may have to answer for that. However, she is known as being very pro-life, and having a good record on that. So it'll depend on how much money she can raise. Chris, I still think you got to be looking at folks like Bob Onder, who can provide a lot of funding and self-funding to the race. I'm talking millions of dollars. He ran for Congress before. Nick Schroer, if Bob doesn't run, I'll make this prediction. I do not believe 2 significant conservatives from St. Charles County will run. So, for example, I do not believe that Bill Eigel and Bob Onder will run, or Bill Eigel and Nick Schroer, or Nick Schroer and Bob Onder. I think you'll have one person known as a well-known conservative coming from St. Charles. It'd be one of the 3 guys I mentioned, probably Bob Onder or Nick Schroer. And then that's the thing, though, Chris. The more people you have in this race, the harder it will be for someone to come out the victor. They're going to have to get their 30% from their base.
All right, let me ask you this.
Yes.
Does she get a slight advantage for being the first one to announce? And will this speed up the announcements of future candidates because she has already come out?
Being that the primary is 7 to 8 months away in August, I don't think there's an advantage there because people will forget that this happened in August. But I do believe, to your second point, it will now cause people to make their decisions quicker because they won't want her to get too much of a head start.
Exactly. Change gears for just a second, lighten it up a little bit. I want to get all your thoughts on something. No shame in the game. During the pandemic, when things were very, very slow, I drove for Uber Eats for a little while.
Oh.
And it actually expanded
That's fascinating.
No, I tell you what.
Didn't Vic Porcelli do something like that too?
Yeah, he did Shipt, where you pick up groceries and stuff for people at Deerbergs and Schnooks and everything. Uber Eats, you just go to the restaurant, pick it up, you go deliver it. It's easy. You ain't got to talk to anybody.
Okay, I bet you've got stories.
Yeah.
Can you tell any of them?
The Korean restaurants. Kimchi, man, don't want to ride around with kimchi when it's cold and you can't let the windows down. Kimchi does not smell very good.
Doesn't travel well.
Does not travel well. But where I'm going with that, we have our groceries delivered usually, and they made a delivery today. And when Becky was bringing in the groceries, they smelled like smoke.
Oh,
now. She was asking me, should we gig them on this? Should we say something? I was like, look, I did this before. You live on your ratings about this, so I don't want to mess up the ratings. But what would you do? Would you got your groceries and they smelled like a pack of Cools? Would you complain?
I would maybe put it in the comment section. I wouldn't necessarily ding if they brought everything correctly and if nothing was broken and it was all in good shape, I'd give them points for that. But I'd say maybe cut back on the pack of smokes.
But those ratings mean a big deal.
Ooh, Chris, I don't want somebody smoking all over my produce.
Yeah, that's true. Joey, what's your thoughts?
What do you think, Joey? Joey's got a comment on this.
I am just allergic to the smell of smoke and marijuana that has overtaken St. Louis. I hate it. So I would have a problem with it. It would actually drive me to go and pick up my groceries again. I don't think I would want that.
I think somebody said, I think it was an Uber driver or something, I don't know, where somebody was complaining. It was like everybody now smells like marijuana smoke. Wherever you go, in public places, cars, public transportation, people smell like weed smoke.
Only legalized gummies. I don't know who approved the smoking and the vaping. This is ridiculous.
I'm with you, man. You know what? Look, as I've gotten older, I've evolved on the whole Mary J discussion. Right. And you do you. It's a weed. It's a plant. But you know what? How about can you just chew on the multicolored gummies? Yeah. 'Cause that doesn't affect really anybody except yourself. Do it at your home where you're safe and sound. Have fun. Don't overdo it. Everything in moderation. But the whole that's smoking and all that. That's so 1970s. Can we just not do that anymore? I'm with you. And Chris, you and I grew up in age. I feel like my sense of smell is much more heightened now because when you and I were growing up, Joey, you're not going to believe this. Chris and I would walk into places, right? And everybody was smoking everywhere. And man, you'd come out at night after if you weren't even if you weren't like a heavy drinker. If you just went to a place that served alcohol and food, and you'd come home, you'd want to burn your clothes, you know? And now that nobody does that anymore, I really notice the smell of smoke now.
I tell you how, I'm going to date myself here. When I went to Hazelwood Central in the mid to early 80s, our high school had a smoking section. It was outside of the lunchroom, and if your parents had to sign a little form, they stamped your bus pass with an S, and you were allowed to go out in the smoking area. Can you imagine that in 2024, a high school allowing smoking?
My high school had a smoking room. St. Louis U High.
That surprised me. I would not have thought
room
that.
In the basement. Yeah.
Really?
It was the weirdest thing in the world, Chris. And you know, I'm not. You and I aren't ancient, but we are old enough that when we were youngsters, and when I was very young, maybe a teenager, I was old enough that I was actually on a transatlantic flight once, where people were smoking in the back of the plane. Why did we ever think that you could isolate cigarette smoking inside a metal tube in a plane? I know airplanes have great ventilation systems. I'm not sure how great they were back in the 80s. And in an airplane, you're going to allow people, and they used to, remember, Chris, they used to say, we'll put them in the back of the plane. It won't affect anyone else. You could smell it throughout the entire aircraft. It was the most ridiculous thing we'd ever did.
You know, Joey and I were talking about that. Joey's younger than me. I was giving him my experience, but you know, in the early 70s, when we didn't know the effects of secondhand smoke and all of that, a lot of people from our generations, more closer to my age, we used to ride in the car with our parents with the windows rolled up, and it's like a chimney inside the car. And you never really, thought about, wow, I'm sitting here breathing smoking air. And it was like, it's just part of the ride. I got to smell smoke.
You know what's funny? It's amazing how smoking used to be so ubiquitous. It used to be everywhere, all the time. Even people didn't smoke. My parents never smoked. But I remember when I was a little kid, when I was like 7, 8, 9 years old, when mom and dad would have guests over, Chris, you probably remember this too. Yeah. When mom and dad would have guests over, or they'd have a little party or dinner party, man, all of a sudden, all these giant green glass ashtrays. Remember the green glass ashtray?
Yeah,
my mom is a neat freak. My mom won't let a crumb hit the ground. She is scrubby Dutch, South St. Louis City. But man, all of a sudden, it was so just prevalent that everybody would expect that people would smoke when they came in your house. Nowadays, my mom, man, you have a cigarette around, she ain't gonna let you anywhere near her house. But it's amazing how smoking used to be everywhere.
Dude, I feel for you because my mom was the exact same way. She was a complete neat freak. The kitchen, couldn't be any dishes in the kitchen or anything. She had to make up your bed.
Yep.
And it was crazy. All of my aunts, 3 or 4, all of them, all the exact same way. Can't sit on the bed, make it up. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
Tim, good show today. Congratulations on the successful House Freedom kickoff.
Thank you,
Up
sir.
next is Larry Connors, USA. He's going to talk about how leftist media covered the names on the Epstein list. Biden continues to make Americans target for terrorists, and he has a plan to stop illegals crossing the Rio Grande. Larry Connors, USA, up next. You've been listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. Drive safe and have a great weekend.
The Herzog Foundation is the vision of its founder, Stanley Herzog, and it exists to promote and accelerate the development of quality Christ-centered K-12 education.
Hi, this is Daryl Jones, president of the Herzog Foundation. Our primary goal is to advance Christian education so that families and culture flourish. The legacy of Stan's business career centers around making national transit ecosystems accessible and sustainable. Likewise, the legacy of Stan's philanthropy centers around making the ecosystems of Christian education more accessible and sustainable for families across the nation. Visit HerzogFoundation.com to learn more about our programs, including trainings, scholarships, conferences, news, and our podcast, Making the Leap.
Visit HerzogFoundation.com to learn more and sign up for The Lion, an initiative of the Herzog Foundation that carries articles covering a wide range of issues facing American families and culture. HerzogFoundation.com.
Is your portfolio prepared for the biggest risks